Hey folks, welcome back to True Crime Stories, where we cover the most thrilling true crime stories. Before we get going, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for me. Thanks. And now let's get into today's story.
All right, so get this. We're in Ember Grove, California. Picture perfect small town, right?
Sounds idyllic.
Well, they're gearing up for their annual harvest festival, but there's been a murder.
Oh, so much for idyllic.
Yes, Claire Byers, a local artist known for these vibrant murals.
I see. So what makes this a deep dive? What's the twist?
Well, everyone loved her. Super vibrant personality, the whole 9 yards.
Hmm.
But the police think it's suicide.
But you don't. Or maybe the town doesn't.
Exactly. Because her recent work, a historical mural, it was stirring up some serious controversy.
Ooh, interesting. What do you mean by historical? Like, what kind of history are we talking?
Well, it depicted the town's past, and some folks whispered that it held some explosive secrets, the kind some people might kill to keep buried.
So someone was threatened by her art? That's wild. Tell me more about Clara. What was it about her work that made people so uneasy?
She wasn't afraid to dig into the shadows of Ember Grove's history, really shine a light on the things people would rather forget.
Right, right. So more like a confrontation than a celebration of the past. Makes you wonder what she uncovered, doesn't it?
It really does. So let's look at the suspects.
Okay, let's. A small town, murder, secrets. This is my kind of deep dive.
First up, we have Oliver Dawson, big-time businessman, pillar of the community.
Sounds squeaky clean. Bet he's got a secret or two.
Oh, definitely. Turns out he was having a secret affair with Clara.
Whoa, hold on. Affair with the victim. Classic love triangle situation.
Yeah, and the sources say that if their relationship came out, it would destroy his reputation, his family, everything.
So, motive number one, fear of exposure.
All right, who else is on the list?
Well, speaking of family, there's Miriam Dawson, Oliver's wife.
Ah, the scorned wife.
Nah,
I bet she wasn't too thrilled about hubby's little fling.
not at all. Described as volatile. The sources say she had a fiery temper, the kind of person who acts first and thinks later.
So jealousy and a quick temper, motive number two. This is getting good. Who else? Who else? Next, we have Randall Harris. He was Clara's mentor, another artist.
Okay. Was he involved romantically with her as well?
No, but he was very possessive, very invested in her life and work.
Almost like he felt he needed to protect her. I've seen that kind of dynamic before. Turns toxic fast.
Exactly. And the sources suggest that he might have taken things too far, trying to shield her from the fallout of her art.
Interesting. Motive number three, obsession, maybe even a warped sense of protection.
Now, the last person on our list is Henry Talbot. He's the town historian.
The town historian. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's his connection to Clara?
He's like the keeper of all of Ember Grove's secrets.
Huh.
The whisters, the legends, he knows it all.
So maybe he had a reason to keep those secrets buried, even if it meant silencing Clara.
You're catching on. So we've got a cast of characters, all with secrets. Now let's dive into the crime scene.
Yes, let's. Paint me a picture of what the investigators found.
Okay, so you walk into her studio. The air is thick with the scent of turpentine.
Can practically smell it now.
And there she is, lifeless, right in front of her finished mural.
In front of the mural. That's eerie. Almost symbolic, like her art was the last thing she saw.
Yeah, and get this. In one hand, she's clutching a paintbrush, and in the other, a water-damaged note.
A note? What did it say? Was she trying to tell someone something?
The writing is frantic and hard to read, but it does hint at a connection between her death and the secrets she dug up about the town.
Okay, so we've got a controversial mural, a cryptic death note, and a whole lot of suspects. What about forensic evidence? Anything juicy there?
Oh, there's always something. The paint splatters, they indicate there was a struggle.
So not a peaceful suicide then. Interesting.
Not at all. Plus, they found a hair. Doesn't belong to Clara.
Ooh, a stray hair. That's classic. Do we know whose it is?
Not yet. But the pressure's on because the Harvest Festival is just days away. And the police chief, Lena Cruz, she's caught between finding the truth and shielding her community from scandal.
Right, because once the news gets out, this idyllic town's reputation is going to be tarnished, festival or not.
Speaking of suspects cracking under pressure, let's start with Oliver Dawson. He had the most to lose, right?
Yeah, the affair, the potential scandal. What's his alibi?
He claims he was home with his wife.
Convenient. Did it check out?
Not exactly. A few witnesses placed him near Clara's studio around the time of her death.
Oh, that's not looking good for Mr. Pillar of the community.
Yeah.
What about the wife, Miriam? How did she handle the scrutiny?
She was tough to crack. At first, they thought she was too fragile, to be involved in something violent.
I bet there's a but coming.
But as the investigation went on, things started to unravel. Inconsistencies in her statements. A lot of anger towards Clara.
The cracks start to show. So what about the other two, Randall and Henry? What's their deal?
Well, Randall, even though he was grieving, got super evasive whenever they asked about Clara.
Makes you wonder what he's hiding, right?
He even implied that she had confided in him about some threats.
Trying to deflect suspicion, maybe. Or genuinely concerned. This guy's a real wild card. What about Henry, the historian? Did he shed any light on the situation?
It's like he was walking on eggshells. He admitted he'd advised Clara to be careful with her art. Hinted that some truths are best left buried.
Wow, cryptic much. Sounds like he knows more than he's letting on. But is he covering something up or just trying to protect the town's legacy? This is getting juicy. So tell me, what was the big break in the case? What led the detectives to the truth?
It was a two-parter, really. Remember that stray hair? Well, it turns out it belonged to Miriam Dawson.
No way. So the scorned wife had been at the scene? That changes things.
It does, but there's more. The investigators, they found a deleted document on Clara's computer.
Ooh, a deleted document? What was it? A confession? A secret diary?
It was a draft for her final mural, and it outlined plans to expose a huge secret, something that would have brought the Dawson family down.
Hold on, so Clara was about to drop a bomb on the town's most powerful family. No wonder someone wanted to silence her.
And that someone might just be Miriam. They confronted her with the evidence. The hair, the document, everything.
All right, spill it. What happened? Did she confess?
She did. Finally broke down, admitted to arguing with Claire in the studio.
An argument that turned deadly? Sounds like it.
In a fit of rage, Miriam pushed Clara. She hit her head and died.
So it wasn't premeditated murder, but a crime of passion. Jealousy, fear, anger, it all boiled over. Tragic, really.
It is. But Miriam's confession, it opened up a Pandora's box for Ember Grove. Now they have to deal with the truth about their beloved artist and the secrets she unearthed.
Right, because even though the case might seem solved, the impact of Clara's death and the secrets she revealed, those are going to resonate for a long time. This town's in for a reckoning. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds.
So Miriam's confession, it's huge. She admits to pushing Clara, leading to her death.
Yeah, but this case, it's like an onion. You peel back one layer and there's always another.
That's what makes it a good deep dive, right? So what happens to Ember Grove after the confession? Do they support Miriam or shun her?
It was a mixed bag, to be honest. Some people were ready to condemn her, wanted her punished, but others, well, they understood the pain and fear behind her actions. They saw the human side.
It's a reminder that it's not always clear-cut, who the victim is and who the perpetrator is.
Absolutely. And moments like this, they reveal the true character of a community, how they deal with tragedy. Do they fracture or come together? So what happened in Ember Grove? Did they fracture?
What's interesting is that Clara's death, as tragic as it was, it actually became this catalyst for change.
Oh, really? Like how so?
Well, her art, the mural that caused all the controversy, it became like a gathering place. People would go there to discuss the events it depicted, share their own stories, really wrestle with the town's past.
So even in death, she was still provoking those difficult conversations, still pushing for truth and transparency.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the mural. The whole atmosphere in town shifted. People started talking more openly about mental health, domestic issues, the importance of seeking help.
Like a dam had broken, releasing all these pent-up emotions and secrets. Fascinating.
Sources even mentioned a local podcast that popped up, Echoes of Ember. An entire season dedicated to Clara's case, interviewing everyone involved.
Whoa, a podcast. That's putting it all out there for the world to hear. That's bold. So what was the impact of the podcast?
Well, it was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it drew more attention to the case, brought in the media, and made people question Ember Grove's values.
Right, shining a spotlight on all their dirty laundry. Makes sense.
But it also gave those affected by the tragedy a chance to share their stories, their grief, their perspectives. Gave them a voice.
So both exposing their vulnerabilities and offering a path to healing, it's complex. I like it. So the town's dealing with the fallout from the case. The podcast is stirring things up. What happens to the individuals? What about Oliver, the guy having the affair? How does he cope?
He goes on a journey of guilt and redemption. He's consumed by remorse, over his role in all of this.
Right, because his actions, even if indirectly, contributed to the circumstances surrounding Clara's death. Makes sense he'd be feeling that way. So what does he do?
He publicly acknowledges the affair, admits his wrongdoing, and expresses regret for the pain he caused.
Publicly. Wow, so he takes ownership of his actions. That takes guts.
And he establishes an arts foundation in Clara's name
Uh,
to support young artists, to make something positive out of all the tragedy.
That's actually really beautiful, a way to keep her memory alive, her passion. What about Miriam, the wife? What happens to her?
She's charged with involuntary manslaughter.
Okay, so she didn't intentionally kill Clara, but her actions led to her death. What happens next?
Miriam, she takes responsibility, accepts the consequences, expresses remorse. She doesn't try to fight it.
Seems like she genuinely understands the gravity of the situation.
The sources describe her as a changed woman, humbled by the experience.
It's a good reminder that even in the darkest moments, growth is possible. So what about Randall, the mentor? How does he handle Clara's death and all the secrets coming out?
His is a tough one. He was devastated, obviously, but he also felt this immense guilt.
Like, he could have done more to protect her. That's got to be a heavy burden.
It aided him. And eventually he became this huge advocate for mental health awareness, encouraged others to seek help, shared his own struggles.
Turning his pain into purpose. Powerful stuff. What about Henry, the historian, the guy who held all the town's secrets?
He really stepped up. Remember how he was hesitant to reveal the darker parts of Ember Grove's history?
Right, like he was protecting the town's image.
Well, he had a change of heart. He organized town hall meetings, encouraged people to talk openly about the past. He even spearheaded this project to create an exhibit at the museum.
A museum exhibit about Ember Grove's history. That's a big deal.
It was. They laid it all out there, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Wow, so they really went for it. Full transparency. Seems like they learned a lot from Clara's death.
They did. And the sources say that this shift towards open communication, it spread throughout the whole town. People were more willing to have those tough conversations, to acknowledge their flaws, to support each other.
So Clara's death, it was like this crack in their perfect facade, and through that crack came empathy, understanding, real connection. Beautiful.
Okay, so we're wrapping up our deep dive into the Clara Byers case, and I'm still thinking about those ripples, the ones we talked about.
Right, the ripple effect of her death on the whole town.
Exactly. So Miriam's confession leads to charges, but did Ember Grove really change, or did things just go back to normal? Like, was it just a temporary blip on the radar?
Yeah, it's the question, isn't it? Can a community really change that deeply? I mean, Miriam was charged with involuntary manslaughter, but what does that even mean in terms of consequences?
Yeah, what did that look like for her in the town?
It basically means she didn't mean to kill Clara, but her actions did lead to her death. The sources say she served time, but they don't say for how long.
Interesting. So no real sense of how the town reacted to that, huh?
Not exactly. Seems like there were mixed feelings. Some people thought the sentence was too light. Others thought she'd suffered enough already. No easy answers.
Right, because bringing Clara back isn't an option. Justice is complicated.
It always is. The legal system can only do so much. It can't really heal those emotional wounds. So what happens to Ember Grove? How do they move on from all this?
Okay, so this is where things get interesting. Instead of trying to bury it all and pretend it never happened, they actually embrace this idea of healing together as a community.
Oh, wow. That's really powerful. So how did that play out?
Well, for one, that Arts Foundation Oliver started in Clara's name. It really took off, became this amazing hub for creativity with workshops and scholarships, all in her honor.
Beautiful. A lasting legacy. And what about Henry, the historian? Did he keep pushing for transparency?
He did. He went all in on that museum exhibit we talked about, made sure it told the whole story, warts and all.
Wow. So they really committed to acknowledging their past, the good and the bad.
It's like Clara's death cracked open this space for vulnerability, and through that, they found a way to connect, to understand each other on a deeper level.
That's incredible. So much healing came from such a tragic event.
And it wasn't just a few people. The sources say this change touched everyone in Ember Grove. They became more open, more empathetic, more willing to have those tough conversations that they might have avoided before.
It's amazing how one event can shift an entire community's perspective.
So years later, after the dust settles, what's left in Ember Grove? What's Clara's legacy?
I think it's a mix of the tangible and the intangible. Obviously, there's the Arts Foundation and the museum exhibit. Those are concrete reminders. But the bigger legacy, the one that really matters, is that shift in consciousness, that commitment to honesty, to empathy, to understanding that healing comes from vulnerability.
This whole deep dive has been a wild ride, hasn't it? A small-town mystery with so many layers. It makes you think about justice, forgiveness, the power of art, all these big human questions.
It really does. And as we wrap things up here, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. What if we all looked at our own lives, our own communities, with the same honesty and curiosity we brought to this case? What secrets might we uncover? What truths might we find? And what would that mean for our own growth and healing?
That's a great question. And on that note, this has been the Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.